Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. I'm coming to you from Chino, California. We're at Manley Labs with EveAnna Manley. Great to see you.
Nice to see you, Mitch. Welcome to Chino.
Always a pleasure to see you. And we've got some really cool stuff for everyone to check out today. We're going to take a tour through the factory and see how things like this massive passive are put together. But there's some other things that are going on here that I really want to talk to you about. And one is the whole made in Chino thing. You aren't kidding when you say things are made in Chino.
Oh yeah, we've got all our workers here, putting together gear with American workforce hands.
Right.
Definitely. We take a lot of pride in producing things locally, and really, at the end of the day, it's all about quality control and consistency of our production that we get by having our eyeballs on this every day right here.
Right. Some of the unusual things here, as we'll see when we go through this tour, is that you're making the actual chassis, the hardware is made in the metal shop here or very close to here, even winding your own transformers here. So it's all made right in this building.
There's a lot of critical processes that occur under this roof here.
Right, right. The other big news from Manley is that you've been introducing new products with a new power supply, but that power supply is now migrating to basically the whole range of things. So tell us about this Manley power supply. What's happening here?
Well, I befriended a really famous and awesome power supply designer, and one of the most brilliant audio designers I know, and that's Bruno Putzis. And I became friends with him at shows, and he used to work for Hypex, and he was really into these switching power supplies. And I said, hey Bruno, would it be possible to make a high voltage one, that can power up vacuum tubes? And he's like, sure, I don't see why not. And so I hired him to design this amazing power supply for us. And thousands of units later, and all these listening tests, and we've proven it to be a totally superior technology to the old linear supplies.
Well, let's start the tour here and see everything from how the rack gear is made to, we'll even see a few of the hi-fi pieces, and then we'll check out some microphones.
Awesome. So here's our R&D team up here. This is where we develop all our new products, and we're working on circuits, sketch out schematics, the top secret dry erase board.
Don't show that.
Jeffrey, you want to show us the new microphone board here? Show it some sexy rotation there. So yeah, this is the existing board for the reference cardioid mic. We did see some reliability issues at times with the way that this board was soldered into this board. So Jeffrey's updating that back to a pin system. And then he's laid out the new artwork. So that's the new board for the new production mics that are
That's amazing.
happening in a minute. There are some modifications in all of the products to be able to use the switching power supply. We're not going to be offering any upgrades from old units to the new power supply because there's just too many changes. Like the massive passive, this product's been in production since 1998, I think it is, and it had a linear supply, and so it took some engineering to work in the new switching power supply. So here's the prototype of that happening. Linear power supplies don't work everywhere, so it's great to have this input power correction where it just knows what voltage it is and works.
Right.
We've done these sonic shootouts. In fact, this phono stage right here, that was the last one I listened to. I took a unit modded with a switching power supply, and I took a stock unit with a linear power supply, and we listened to them at a mastering studio in LA, and we listened to records that were cut at that mastering studio. It was just so awesome, and we picked it every time on blind listening test. It was that dramatic.
Did you expect that would happen with the power supply? I mean, I know there are the electrical benefits of it. Did you expect there would be the sonic benefits as well?
I didn't expect it would be that much. It was quite a lot, actually.
Right.
Yeah, and it really illuminated like how important all this is. So here, what we do is basically the finishing before it goes to anodize. Polishing, sandblasting, line graining. The bridge ports here, we can do small modifications or, like make a hole larger on the lathe or whatever. But the production parts, there's a great machine shop in this office park that has all kinds of automated lathes and CNC milling machines too. We use them, and we use the other shop down the street too.
Okay.
So truly, all this stuff is produced in Chino, not China.
Yeah.
This is a very much manually programmed mechanical engraving machine. So that's obviously on the wrong side of the unit, but this is cutting through the anodize to make a mechanical engraving on this Hermes machine here.
And the only way to control it is the Apple II.
Vintage 1982 Apple II machine, 5 1/4 floppies.
No way.
Yes, and at GearFest, there was a free box of 5 1/4 floppies like years ago in the used and free section.
Yep.
I'm like, you know, I need these because at least I can run like the copy program and make a backup copy of my disc and keep them in my safe deposit box. You know,
That is so awesome.
you know, I had bought a PC interface upgrade like decades ago, but it would have required me to redraw and reprogram everything, and I had already, you know, programmed every single, you know, hundreds of panels manually in this stupid computer. And the CAD program at the time in the 90s, it was very cumbersome, and I never implemented it. But yeah, mechanical engraving, you have to really babysit it a lot. And
Right.
15 years ago or so, we bought this beautiful laser engraver. There's a headphone amplifier being done there. So this is the assembly force here. There's still a lot of handwork done. Your Saulo been working with me since 1989. Más que 30 años. So we got Americans putting stuff together in Chino, not China. But yeah, somebody's got to bolt all these things together, and it's going to be Saulo. He does a good job. ¿A qué hora vienes aquí? En la mañana. 3:30 in the mañana? He comes at 3:30 every morning to clean first, and then he starts work.
Wow. That's awesome.
He doesn't sleep. He's a machine.
I guess.
Oh my goodness. So there you go. So he does predominantly mechanical assembly.
Uh-huh.
Then the wire kits are prepped in advance over there. Like the Vox box, there's 28 wires they need to make. That's an older design, right?
Right.
The core, which is a modern version of a Vox box, right? That's the core wire harness. So that's one reason our newer products are a lot less expensive than the older products, is that we've really streamlined the production and minimized the hand labor that has to go into it, and taking advantage of board layout and smaller chassis and that kind of thing. Like the I/O connectors are all on the board, so there's less wiring. And so the core flies together in an hour total, whereas the Vox box was like 4 or 5 hours to put together.
So these are all this is every wire that's needed to basically, once the circuit board is in place and the controls are, I assume you're wiring then to the controls and those kinds of things?
That's right. But yeah, there's that's the ugly copy unit for the core. So they can see, you know, here's that wire harness. It's got to plug in that way. The red wire's got to face this way.
Right.
But you can see, you know, how little labor there is in this unit. It really does fly together pretty quickly, which is great.
The way that you're doing that makes it so clean.
Our newer designs, we're really paying attention, not just to the appearance, but really ease of service and minimizing the build time so that we can keep the cost down in America.
Right.
Yeah. We're just doing 10 of this Stingray amplifier, and there's just a couple surface mount parts on it. Rita's just hand soldering 10 surface mount boards here with the microscope, and she's very skilled at it. Rita's been working with me since 1994, 1995, something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
So she's an expert.
Again, another thing here that makes Manley gear special, I'll give you see these. There's so many parts that need to be matched and batched and pre-tested for optimum performance. Like these are the Vactrols that are used in all of our LOP limiters, and that's seen in the Vox box 2 times, in the Slam, in the LOP Plus, and in the Core as well. But these Vactrols, it's a LED and a light-dependent resistor, and they're all over the place. Like if you put that volt in, you're not going to get that resistance out all the time.
Okay.
So we have these special jigs where we plug in all the Vactrols, and they step through them and take the resistance measurement at 3 different voltage points, and then they manually go through and match them. So
Wow.
that, because there's some circuits where the meter has to match the audio. Like there's a Vactrol driving the meter, or you have a stereo situation like in the Slam, where the left needs to match the right. So when you hit the audio, they're both responding in the same speed and amount of limiting, right?
Right.
So it's very time consuming, batching high tolerance parts and getting really good matches.
Right, right.
Important.
That's one of the things that separates like a premium piece of gear from something that's a little bit more low
Exactly.
end, is the tolerances too that you're working to, I imagine, are very tight.
Yeah, you know, modern recording with plugins has gotten everyone used to computer-like accuracy, and then they want that out of the analog equipment. We have to work very hard to get
Right.
real close to that.
So what, you mentioned the Vactrols, it's important to do that with. Are there other particular components that are important that you match like that?
Sure. Inductors, like for the massive passive EQ, the inductors, capacitors that set the frequencies, you know, you want those matched as well. So you're not like 820 hertz on this channel and 900 on this, you know. You
Right.
want to, again, you want to try to get the accuracy with the amount of something or the frequency of something that, or the speed of something. There's a lot of parameters that we need to juggle in all of these units to make them as accurate as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's got to remember it's still analog gear.
Right.
And sometimes there's a magic in a slight mismatch.
Sure.
When it comes off the line, every unit's getting a visual inspection first. Because, you know, 90% of a problem that might show up on the QC bench, it's going to be a human error. And usually you can see that human error. And so Manny's going to give a visual inspection to every unit before it gets rolled into QC. Just to make sure everything's in the right place, make sure all the right values were loaded, and so on.
Right.
Every unit after visual inspection is going to come in for electrical testings and calibration. So here, all our guys have audio precisions. Here, Chris is checking the, what are you checking, the de-esser?
I was,
the
now I'm
limiter?
going into the preamp
Oh,
out
okay.
and line input.
Are your curves up there, are those the de-esser curves?
Yes, they are.
And they're not there anymore.
He's moved on.
So he's moved on to just check the frequency response of the preamp section, and it's flat as expected. There
Awesome.
you go. And they're looking at noise levels. The tubes have all been pre-tested and batched and matched. The tubes are another thing that we totally have to qualify before they go into a unit. So we've got some homebrew test equipment there that tests for special parameters. Just outside there, there's a bunch of burn-in racks where we just cook in the tubes for days or a week or something, so that all the tubes get aged in, and we try to catch all the problems here, not in your studio.
Right, right. So is it mainly 12AX7s you're using? I see some 12AT7s, 6072s.
It's, you know, we try to design the products around tubes that are still being made today, and common tubes. Like we don't want to cause everyone a bunch of trouble finding weirdo tubes.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have to find tubes we can have a lot of. So thank goodness for the guitar market that keeps vacuum tube production alive.
Right, right.
When I'm buying tubes, like if I'm buying NOS tubes, they might have been around the block before. So we have to be very critical about where we're buying tubes or what's really being sold to us, because people can totally clean off the ink on a tube and rescreen them or re-etch them, and you got to really know what you're buying. It's like a bottle of wine. Like if you looked at a bottle of wine, you don't know what's inside.
Right.
Somebody could totally be faking that. So
Interesting.
that's why we do try to base our current production on brand new tubes that are being made today.
I didn't realize tube counterfeiting was a thing.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's crazy.
And that's another reason we advise customers, if they're retubing their unit, to go to tubesrule.com, our part site, and they can put their serial number in there, and then a set of tubes will be provided to them that are tested for that unit, and that will work in that unit the best.
Right.
Transformer production. So these machines are all set up to wind transformers. These they look like variable mu output transformers to me, and each one is wound on these precise American machines. Like a part we made today is going to match exactly a part we made 10 years ago. And we're winding the exact same part, the exact same guy was making it, same materials. Like the consistency over the decades of what we've been making is admirable.
So I don't think that people, you think about made in Chino, that you're really making everything here. I mean, is anybody else doing that?
It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
This is a rare thing. So much of the sound of the tube circuit is the transformer, not the tube.
Right.
That's what really affects things, so it's important to get that right. Because we can design what we want and make what we want or modify what we want, or maybe, a guy needs an 8-ohm output tap transformer, for his power amp. We can just calculate and make that part for him. But the consistency and reliability of the parts that we make here, we know what's inside every single unit. They're not paid by the piece. They have no reason to kind of shortcut anything. Everything needs to meet the exact standard of how we designed it.
Right.
It's
Do you
great.
design the gear then around that transformer so you don't have to make a huge number of transformers, or is the transformer custom made for each piece of gear?
Usually the transformer will be made for each piece of gear. There's several, like we have a mic input transformer that we use. That's going to be used in all our mic pre's.
Sure.
Okay. The same one is used in the Force as the box. It's a great part. It does its thing there. Like the headphone amplifier, it's a brand new design. It's a little push-pull amplifier. It can be run in single-ended as well. So that transformer for that circuit needs to accommodate a lot of different operating modes. It has to work in single-ended, it has to work in push-pull, it has to work with a wide range of feedback, accommodate the EQ, different levels. So that part, they went through, I think, 24 prototypes to develop that unit. And that output transformer is so good. I can't imagine trying to work with an outside transformer vendor on that if you were trying to go through 24 prototypes. And how long would each one take? Here we can calculate, hand the paper to Joe, say, hey, wind this, and in a couple hours we're measuring it and listening to it. So it really helps our development go really a lot faster and more efficiently to have that here. But besides that, having the knowledge of what we're doing, it's like, I think we'll decrease the inductance a little bit and maybe let it saturate just a hair early, and maybe that's where the magic is. Like we've done that with parts, where we can just, it's like spice in a food, like we can really play with the micro parameters like that to get exactly what we want. We can balance between empirical measurements and soul and emotion and enjoyment and what's going to make this thing sound awesome. Like those are all, that's taste factor.
But that's the art of it.
That's what we do.
Because you can design from a scientific standpoint, or a mathematical standpoint, but the art of it is where the sound really comes together.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what we've really learned over the decades is how to jump in between those two realms. Between the empirical data and the emotion. We're in the microphone production room here. Our best-selling product is the Manley reference cardioid microphone, and I know Sweetwater, you guys sell tons of these. And
beautiful mic.
Everyone loves them, and the shootouts that y'all have put up on your website are also really illuminating to discern the sound between the reference cardioid and the reference gold mic and the reference silver mic, and they each have different characters. They each have different capsules, but brand new for 2020, they're all going to have the same power supply.
Nice.
So these right here are a couple of the switch mode power supplies that we built special for the 30th anniversary reference cardioid mics. We're still getting a couple of those out right now.
Those are so cool.
They look pretty good. They sound good too because they have that new power supply. So we're getting the production of the reference cardioid switched over to the new power supply right now as well. And the gold mic also is following suit, and the reference silver mic, here's a body of one here. Might as well show one of these guys. The reference silver mic was born with its switching power supply. So it's the gold mic and the cardioid mic that will follow suit.
They're catching up, right?
They're catching up
Right.
to the silver mic.
So earlier we talked about the difference that it makes using the power supply with the power amplifiers and some of the line level gear. What difference does it make with the microphones? Is there a sonic difference with that as well?
I think the same kind of qualities definitely translate. It's sometimes a little more difficult to do that shootout because there's always a little variation in a capsule that might distract you from really hearing that
Understood.
A to B.
Right.
But the same, you can expect the same sonic benefits in any of these small, line level devices. Is just a little cleaner sounding, definitely a complete elimination of any kind of 50 or 60 hertz hum in any of the units, and it's just a more solid and deeper sounding device with that new power supply.
Hard to put that stuff into words, but I get what you're saying though. It's there, right?
You
perceive
is there. Most importantly, because people do travel around the world with their microphones because they're in a carrying case. You can just take them on the plane with you. The new power supplies are universal voltage and they work all over the world, so you don't have to use an outboard converter or blow up your unit traveling.
Right. That's a big benefit.
It's a big benefit, yes. Yeah, another thing, sometimes with the linear power supplies, like here's one, sometimes the power transformer will mechanically vibrate at 60 hertz here in America or 50 hertz overseas. And, I've seen people recording with their power supply on their desk, with their microphone, and they're doing VO, and they're like, yeah, it's humming. It's like, yeah, you're miking the transformer. So another benefit of the switch mode power supply is there's no 50 or 60 hertz vibration at all going on. It's working at like 125 kilohertz. And so there's a complete reduction of mechanical hum in the system, which you don't have to hide it far away.
Right.
So it'll be great to make the move into the new switching power supply.
Excellent. So I guess it's apropos that we'll kind of wrap things up here today in the shipping department where things head out into the world, head to Sweetwater, right?
That's right. They're all going to Sweetwater.
We love it. We love it. You got a box here that's getting packed up and is going to ship out. Of course, all the products go from here. But thanks so much for taking the time with us today and showing us really what goes into making a Manley product. There's a lot that goes into it.
Thank you so much for focusing on us today and help to share our story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great story, and like I said, there's just so much that goes into this, and I think people are going to be fascinated, like I was, to really see all that because you don't see behind the scenes that often.
Well, anyone's welcome to come for a factory visit, online or in person.
There you go. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. And thank you for joining me here in Chino, California. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater, coming to you from Manley Labs.